Hey everybody, it's Rob here. Mythic Uniques are the most powerful items you can get in Diablo 4, or at least that's the idea. While some of them, like Starless Sky or the Shaco, dominate the game completely, others lag behind and collect dust. So today I would like to share with you some ideas to improve the weakest ones and rank them in a tier list from good to bad. I already made a somewhat similar video about half a year ago, but we still haven't seen improvements to some of these weaker ones. So I feel it's more important than ever, especially with a possible expansion coming up, that we get to check these mythic uniques and these powerful items and actually make some of them powerful, because they are still so rare. I've basically separate them into different tiers here, and starting at the very bottom, like seeing no use in the game whatsoever, I pretty much have the Shattered Vow. I have the Nekassim, the Herald. Many people don't even know that this one exists. It's a Spiritborn weapon. And we have the Aharian Spear of Lycander. So all of these don't really have any use in the current game, in the current meta. They don't see any play on any builds. And most of them I feel like lack an identity or really lack a damage. For example, here Shattered Vow is a two-handed weapon, which is supposed to be working for your dots, but it basically is completely missing a multiplier. And these days, especially with, you know, the attack speed caps that we have in the game, a 44% attack speed, like while you berserk, doesn't really do anything. And I think there should be some increased damage while you berserk, or if they really want to go with the fantasy of bleed and, you know, basically executing enemies. If they have more bleed than they have life, I think something cool should happen, you know, if you do execute the enemies. For example, there could be like a big explosion, like, you know, you execute the enemy when he was bleeding and then he just explodes for even more bleed damage to all the surrounding targets, or something cool like this. I feel is completely missing on this Shattered Vow, and I'm getting asked a lot of questions like why we never play this unique. You know, it's competing with other two-hander slots plus tempering, and most classes get a double, a triple, or even a quadruple damage multiplier on this slot. And this is pretty much the same for the Nekassim here as well, and the Spiritborn. Like, you know, you really want to play that Rod of Kepeleke, or you really want to be playing the aspect of Redirected Force with the Jaguar Hall dip, or with the Mystic Circles and stuff. And I feel like this just basically critting and overpowering is just like not a big deal anymore, especially now that the overpower has received a significant nerf. And then the other one here is Aharian. This is like for druids and sorgs, and it's supposed to give you like these shrine effects. And even with the recent goblin event that we had not so long ago, this one right here, where we get like all these treasure bags, I still feel like this is not really useful anymore, and it also lacks, you know, like a big multiplier or something. We have this like percent to all stats, but if you're comparing this to like a Rotten Lightbringer or something, like it gives you a ton more stats, and just simply getting this shrine is just not cutting it at all. I think here they could also like add a significant offensive bonus in some way. Maybe, you know, give you a bonus like while you have a shrine. Let's say you gain this random shrine effect, and on top of this, like when you have a shrine, you deal 100x increased damage, or you get, you know, like, I don't know, like a big movement speed boost when you have the shrine, or you get some cool stuff, and then on top of this, obviously, get rid of the movement speed cap. That would be cool. Like, this is just some ideas that we have here, but like these two-hand weapons just need to be a bunch stronger. The only really two-handed weapon that is somewhat competitive is Grandfather, and this gives you double damage, a ton of life, a ton of stats, a ton of damage, and resources, which is also a DPS multiplicative scalar here for you. And then the next category here, so these are like absolutely useless, and then the second worst category here is basically like a full niche use or some hardcore use, mainly talking about the Turael's Might and the Melted Heart here. Like, these are very defensive options, but, you know, playing defense in an ARPG, unless you're playing hardcore, is not really the way, especially if Melted Heart here, for example, is competing on the Amulet slot. And also, I feel here they could double down with the identity. You remember, like, back in the days when the game came out, the Melted Heart here would give you not 60 resource, but it would give you double your resource, so like 100% resources, just like the actual conduit pants do on the Sorc. So I feel that could be a nice idea because, you know, if you have more resources, there's always a lot of stuff you can do with it. If your amulet gives you double resources, you could like scale damage with Ramalardi or Serpentine Aspect or like other stuff that scale damage based on your resources, or even, you know, the toughness from a degree would also become a ton better here, with it providing a double amount of your total resources, and that's very nicely paired with the resource generation. So I think just instead of 60 plus 60 resources, it should just be plus or times 100% resources. That'd be pretty cool. The same on Tyrell's Might. I really like the idea. I remember like we were spinning around with the Tyrells and shooting all these lightning bolts, and then we are proccing like Berserk Ripping in the path with some cool meta. And I feel like something like this needs to come back. But you see, you have 800 weapon damage here when you're unleashing this artillery shrine effect. With the Tyrell's Might on every attack, and I think they can like 10x this or make this powerful again, you know, like only while you're healthy it works, and then like, you know, it does some cool AoE damage. I think it would be really cool to have something like this on the Tyrell's Might again, and it dealing like a ton of DPS with those cool arrows. That was a fun playstyle. And then in this category, in this bad category, I also have the Andariel's Visage. It has a very niche use on some rogue builds. I also don't understand why this is a generic unique. You know, most classes and most builds can't even use this because it's a poison, like a poison multiplier, and does poison damage. And like Barb can equip this, but Barb doesn't even have any poison. So I feel like this should be like more of a generic item of some sorts. Like they could also just remove it from the loot table of Barb, Necromancer, and Sorc, because yeah, those classes don't even have poison. Or give like a nice multiplier, like the Druid passive comes to mind, where you deal increased damage like when an enemy is poisoned or something, right? Like that could be pretty cool. Like let's say, I don't know, you deal 50% X increased damage when the enemy is poisoned, or they take 50x increased damage, because it's competing with Air of Perdition and it's competing with Shaco for the Helm slot. So I feel like this definitely needs like some kind of like damage bump, staying true to the poison identity, or becoming a class specific items for builds and characters that can actually scale the poison damage, because it just feels really bad. Like there's these 3 helms in the game, and whenever you find a helm and it's an Andariel's Visage, you just want to uninstall. You just want to Alt F4. And I think that's a bad feeling, because this is supposed to be one of the most rarest, the hardest items to find. And you should be not super duper disappointed, like, oh, I'm just going to salvage it, you know, when you find it. Like, I think every Mythic Unique in general should have some kind of use. And then I have another category here. It's not the best category. I used to say to this category, like, it's decent in overpower builds. But since overpower has been nerfed, both the Grandfather and the Doombringer have fallen off a little bit in their usefulness, because before you could scale overpower damage with life, and in this game it's pretty much all about damage unless you're playing hardcore. And they have fallen certainly off a bit. You could combine this category, but I still feel a Doombringer and the Grandfather are usable, especially the Grandfather on the Barb, because you get the maximum resources, and we can actually scale this with stuff like Ramalardi, with stuff like adaptability now. So there's at least some more uses than just in hardcore. And Doombringer is just a true powerhouse that is played on quite a few builds, especially if you just want to become like basically completely immortal. You just play this. If you're Masterworkers, it gives you like 80% life. But even here, man, I'd like to see some, maybe like some offensive capabilities in a way as well. Like, I don't know, like there could be some cool stuff to do with like the shadow damage, like you pull in the enemies when you do the shadow damage, or you corrupt them and make them, like, you know, like take more damage or something. Like they could do something cool with this as well. I would also love to see the Grandfather like a bit bumped up to become more competitive again. We'll see what's going to happen with all of this, but I think overall, like, these uniques are not really the problem. It's more like these 6 in the bottom tiers that I'm mainly concerned about. And then obviously we have the tip of the top tier. I don't think these need any changes. I also don't really want to see any of the nerfs. You know, there's always 2 ways of balancing stuff. You can nerf the top, or you can just buff the bottom. And I think the Shaco with the crazy cooldown, damage reduction, skill ranks, I think the Starless guy is probably the most spread, most useful unique for pretty much every build. Shroud of False Death the same way. Like, these are super insane. And the Air of Perdition, I really like the competition that you always have for the Helm slot, where you have either Harlequin's Crest or the Air of Perdition. That feels really good to have some options. And then the Shroud of False Death and the Starless Sky is like a no-brainer on like 90% of the builds. Like these are completely insane, and I think they can just stay like this. And if the others get a complete, you know, like power boost, that would be fantastic to me. They need quite a bit, especially these two-hander here that I mentioned at the very start. I think they could easily get like double damage or something, or like, you know, some cool mechanic, like, you know, execute enemy while it's bleeding, do some like big AoE explosion that does a ton of damage or something. Something cool, man. Like, I just like to see that all of these are becoming useful, and you don't have to feel bad about, you know, when you find one of these. Because, you know, like you have like 4 useful ones. Like these 4, I think people are very happy about, and you can easily see it with the rune prices. If you're looking on Diablo Trade or any trading websites, you can kind of see that the demand, for example, like for a buck, an Eom or an Om rune, like they are like super high in there. And then like who wants to craft a Shattered Vow, a Nekazim, you know, an Aharian, or even an Andariel? It's like nobody wants these, and it just feels really bad if you find them. And I'm just hoping that they're gonna see some significant bump here come the next season, come season 10, which is, by the way, starting on the 23rd of September. And we should have the PTR here very soon. That's my thoughts, guys. I have a bit of a tier list here as well that I made. So here's just the full summary of this. And yeah, we'll see. Again, this is just my opinion. You can let me know what you think about these mythics in the comments below. And yeah, the intro here and the start was basically from a blasting on the PTR. So that's going to come soon, and we're going to get, you know, a ton of mythics here on the floor. I'm looking forward to it, and hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think below, and I'll see you soon. GG, take care, my friends. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.